Events in popular games are not a new concept. I mean, Christmas comes along, microtransactions dump onto that product, and then at some point, all of the players within that ecosystem have some type of skin relating to the holiday that they know and love. But what happens when a game actually goes beyond what the traditional holidays would be and throw events for those is something that I believe is a really nasty area, and I'm directly experiencing it in one of my favorite childhood games that I've played since I was a kid. So Pocket Legends, a very popular MMO that came out around 2010 to 2009. If you were in the mobile gaming era, it's very likely you've heard of this game. It had a massive boom in user spikes for years and years to come. It was pretty much primarily one of the best just grind, join a level, end a level, cave diving, dungeoning kind of game. The problem is, since the users have begun to drop, and now we're probably around 100 to 150 active users in any given day, the way the developers have decided to maintain the revenue coming in for their actual product is something that I honestly haven't really seen before in any other games. So at the time of this recording, it's September 9th. They've announced within their game, and I'm currently looking at it, there's a Hall of Amulets event starting September 11th. I'm not gonna sit here and pretend like September 11th I have a ton of attachment to. I didn't really have any direct family attached to the events and tragedies that happened in September 11th. And politics aside, if somebody dies in real life, not in a game, but legitimately in real life, I would argue that that is a tragedy to whatever degree it is. When we're looking at games that are actually hosting events, generally speaking, it's okay to say, hey, we're going to be hosting microtransactions, we're going to be doing a big event, we're going to get some extra revenue through our business on these events, like any form of holiday. We're talking Christmas, Easter, Valentine's Day, whatever it is, and then generally speaking, they release skins, microtransactions for those. Problem with this is they've gotten to a point where they realize users spike whenever there's an event happening. Extra drops, transactions go up because it's limited time things, and at some point you start to question, what's the mentality behind the developers to choose an event that had a tragedy happen during it? Like, why host an event that starts on the date of September 11th when it could just be a September event and you're doing a monthly event from there? I guess my question here is, at what point do developers actually start to over monetize and start to overdo the things that they need to do just to keep the lights on? Because I will say, I understand the business from a capital standpoint is very, very likely struggling, and it's probably close to ending. But to onboard new users, to keep and retain new users on your platform, and then to ultimately monetize those users, I believe doesn't come through events that are hosted on tragedies. And I mean, in a very far out way, we could relate this to the Holocaust. I mean, imagine Fortnite, the most popular game on this planet, hosting an event on the day the Holocaust started, and they're monetizing that event, and none of the proceeds are going to support any of the victims that actually happened from that. And let alone look at the events of Palestinians in Gaza today. I'm not taking a political stance on either side, but I do want to make the relational component between starting an event in a video game that's based around a tragedy that's happened and monetizing on it without any benefit to the victims at all. Now, of course, if Fortnite came out with a 9/11 event, it would get a ton of backlash from the community. At what point do we just make events for whatever events come up? Like, I understand July 4th was another event that they highlighted, and they had a 2-week-long event where they monetized the shit out of its users. I mean, the microtransactions alone are insane, and I understand it. I want to reiterate, I understand the need for capital in a business, but at what point is it overdoing it? At what point do you just say, hey, things aren't working for us. Like, we're squeezing the money out of people, and we're trying to come up with ways that just aren't morally correct. To me, it's just a question of moral compass. And I understand if the developers aren't US based, and to be honest, I don't know if they are, but to make events on tragedies and then charge for them and charge microtransactions for them blows my mind. And to not only charge microtransactions, but to then not even allude to the actual event itself and the victims of that event, rather just profit entirely on it. And it's okay. I get the whole marketing component, like Dove soap, right? When BP's oil spill happened, animals were impacted a ton. Look at Dove come in, Dawn soap, just come in and support those animals with oil greasing soap that removes all the oil from these animals, and whoop-de-doo. Now it's still on their packaging to this day. I get the component of taking tragedies and spinning them to work with your product. That's just the nature of capitalism and the state of the world that we live in. But when you take those events and just charge on top of them without putting any proceeds or profit towards them, what does it become? Like, are we really that monetary focused as a world to where we're willing to take tragedies like BP oil spill, 9/11, and take those events and actually monetize the shit out of just these users that just want to experience and play the game? I don't know. I guess for me, it was just a realization that the game that I've been playing since I was a kid has gotten to a point of irreversible decisions. And this is one of those. At some point, you realize as a development team, as a product development team, as a business as a whole, that we're going to squeeze as much money out of these users as we can until the game dies. Instead of thinking of new ways to bring in new users, that's when the game is over. And unfortunately, for my childhood, for my nostalgia, for everything else, I'm realizing it's over. With all this said, it's still a game that's fun. It's still a game that I play. It's still a game that I can enjoy just hanging out on the couch in the evening, hanging out, merching a little bit, talking to the people that are still active on the game, because it's been ingrained in me from a kid. At the end of the day, this is just a single decision made from a development team that is likely uninformed about whatever. But regardless, when you're running an event, when you're running and pushing microtransactions on your game, and you're trying to monetize and squeeze every last little bit out of your user base, you have to do some research beforehand. And if you are going to highlight negative events in the past, like 9/11, at least put proceeds from your profits towards the events themselves, or at least the victims themselves. Because at least then you have a justification behind, hey, we're raising money for this. If it's literally 100% of the proceeds are going to the company and you're just highlighting the event. Now, I will say the event itself, Hall of Amulets in this game, isn't directly stating, hey, we're supporting 9/11, we love the event, everything else. Of course, they're not saying that. But to just the premise of starting an event on the date that a tragedy happened, and knowing that the game has already ran every single American holiday from July 4th to whatever Independence Day happened, like, they're in touch with at least American holidays. Why make it on the date that a tragedy happened and started? That's when it takes it too far. So thanks for listening to me, some random guy on the internet, talk about whatever video game that he cares about, just slightly in this world that has so many bigger issues. And I hope that this video isn't just treated as a hate towards video games, rather than a message to all of video games as a whole, to development teams, to indie studios, to everything else. Just, if you're planning on charging, if you're planning on doing microtransactions, at least do it in a way that doesn't disrespect people and victims of events.